General Protocol Spaces. Banking on Freedom.
Welcome to General Bull 49 of N. This is a continuation of sorts to our last conversation about a lot of privacy topics. So not only privacy, but this time maybe privacy also where it connects with security and some other issues about the practical topics of why privacy is important and so forth. So yeah, let's get into it. Before we do that, the introductions. So Fiendish does a lot of things. Could you quickly introduce yourself, Fiendish, for everybody?
My name's Fiendish. I am the host of Fiendish and Friends. I was also just a massive Bitcoin Cash proponent. Very much a fan of freeing money from the state, and so I'm a very vocal activist in this area, and also founded the R Cash Tokens Reddit and also Telegram group, where I try and help builders and entrepreneurs uh, find their niche within the Bitcoin Cash community to try and help grow this wonderful network that we've got.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. And Jim, could you, Jim, you've joined us many times and we work together, but for the audience, could you give a quick summary, what you work on and what you're doing?
So my name's Jim. I do like lots of little bits and pieces on BCH as a developer, and primarily at the moment it's XO and Cash Connect stuff.
You know, you're talking to a cool guy when it's like primary architect of something and he's like, I do little bits and pieces. Nice. We love the work that you do, Jim. Thank you. He's done a lot of things in the past as well, like over time, just built so many various things in BCH. Yes, Jerry, could you give us a quick introduction? And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much. And my name's Jerry. I've been in the Bitcoin Cash space since 2017 or so, and right now just focusing a lot on getting my opt-in wallets released onto the Play Store. It has proper compatibility with all these covenants and cash script smart contracts, so hopefully by summer people will have their the wallets in their hands.
Very nice. All right. So yeah, let's get started. We could start on any topic. Does somebody have a particular thing they wanted to start on? If not, I'm gonna go into some deep technical stuff and you're all gonna regret it. So somebody better have something.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Hey, he's on. What's up? Hey, Jeremy.
Usually doesn't work from the web app, but I'm going to give it a go here and see how we do. This is a bit drama, so you can maybe skip this one if you want, but it's kind of perfectly timed, which is that I noticed today that the Lightning Network and Monero guys have set up a debate with Vlad Kostia about their privacy. And I was thinking about that. I thought, why haven't I heard about this? Why haven't I seen about this? Usually I'm kind of in the loop of this kind of thing. And then I've realized that it's actually that it's no longer fun to debate or argue or even generally interact with the BCH community, because we've got to the point that we just destroy everyone with facts, and a competition isn't fun if one side is just always dunking and the other side has no hope. You know, at a certain point you stop playing, and that's kind of what's happened. So not that we necessarily have the best privacy tech. In fact, I think we actually have a decent ways to go on that, but we've kind of passed the stage that anybody is going to bother like disputing us, and now we just need to put up results that convince people to switch, because the existing people are happier in their echo chamber and debating amongst themselves than actually competing with us.
Maybe so. I don't know. It's I think there's some element of when you're a one trick pony, you talk about it, and not to say a negative thing about Monero necessarily, right? But I mean that's Monero's thing, so of course they're gonna want to talk about it. And then Lightning is just a clown show that's never really gonna work, so they've got to talk about something to make it sound all right. So I don't know what the game is. I wouldn't be comfortable having that debate. What a silly debate to have. Like it's just such a Monero you can actually use. right? And it can actually have some kind of meaningful level of privacy. Lightning, just what are they even thinking? Anyway, yeah. So I'm glad you could come on and join us. So as a topic, yeah. Let's leave politics and and dunking on other chains out maybe for this one. But besides that, any other topics? Otherwise, I'm going to go into the technical one. All right, you're going to regret it. So actually, I'm going to force Uname to talk here because he is the designer of this thing that we talked about last time, which is the RPA, the reusable privacy or private addresses.
Do I have to talk about that, or can I talk about something even more controversial?
See, I told you were going to regret it, so now you can talk about the thing that you actually wanted to talk about. Yeah, go
wait. So which one? Which one?
It is. It's your table.
Oh shoot. Okay. So last time on the General Protocol Spaces, we talk quite a bit at length about anonymity sets and privacy technology in general. We talk a little bit about how privacy actually works on crypto today, and how Binance was the biggest, I would say, privacy device, as severely flawed as it is, of today. So I do want to challenge people further and think a bit more about what privacy actually means when it comes to most of the people using crypto, and why, despite the effort of a lot of advocates, including myself, most people just don't care. Like, why is that? So yeah, let's think about it for a second.
I think that's a fair statement, right? I don't think anybody disagrees that if you just talk to the average person, whether they care in detail, if you actually dig into the topic about some aspect of privacy, which they may or they probably do, when it comes to just the topic of privacy, I think the vast majority of people I know are just like, whatever. It's not really a thing they think about. I think that's fair, right?
Well, I mean, there are several subtypes of this. Some of them are sympathetic. Like, okay, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Yeah, privacy, yay. What do I do to get this privacy thing? Okay, it takes. It takes like a little bit of effort. Okay, cool. Let me go along with it. It takes a little bit more effort. Oh shoot, fuck it. I have things to do. Bye.
I think that's
so-
fair. Jeremy,
this is the best case.
Jim, is that what you guys find also? Is that how you guys see it? That's what I see.
Yeah, I just see like I don't know. I really don't think the average person really cares that much until it impacts them, and then all of a sudden they kind of get really upset about it. But yeah, in my experience,
and I think there are aspects where they don't know about it. If they did, they would care. Or there's aspects that are just built in, and they think they have certain levels of privacy on things, and it's not really a thing they think about. It's just that it's there. It's the water they live in, and they don't really think about it. And
they don't think
if it
about
was
it,
violated, like you said, then they would really get hot about it, right?
well, and they do like so like in Australia, you can only take out like a certain amount of cash from a bank at one time, right? And I think it's like $5,000 or something. They still ask you why you want it.
Oh, it's getting smaller and smaller.
Smaller and smaller, but people are starting to get really pissed off because they're discovering this is happening now. So it's kind of like the bank will ask them, "Oh, what are you doing with this money? None of your business." And then they realize, like, "Oh, fuck, I do actually kind of care," right? And at a certain point, it's like they won't give you like. There's been incidents here where people have tried to withdraw like $10,000 at once, and that's been completely rejected, and there's been like huge scenes, police have had to be called and all that kind of thing over incidents like that. So I think people do care. I think you're right. It's just kind of, they don't really realize like that there's not privacy at the moment.
Devils don't have to raise their hands.
Great stuff. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and I also disagree. So I agree with the fact that people don't care about privacy because as was already been mentioned, they already make assumptions about the level of privacy they have, and that it's enough. But where I disagree with is just like no one uses crypto for payments in the world. It's just a rounding error. And anyone that does, and you say, oh, by the way, wow, you've got that much BCH or whatever crypto you've got, that's nice. Watch their face. Everyone cares about privacy when they understand what it means. Everyone, every single person. And every single person that's going to be using cryptocurrency at a certain point will care very much about privacy. So I agree with what you're saying. And I think that's the case today. But again, it's just because when people think of cryptocurrency, they just assume it's like cash and they're sending some money. And anyone that I onboard, that they just see this money arrive and they're wanting like, wow, that's amazing. The thought process doesn't go much further than that. But of course, if they all of a sudden use that money to go and buy something, maybe something that's whatever it is, and then they realize that, hang on a minute, you can see all of how much money I've got, and oh crap, you can see what transactions I've already made to which shops. And then I really would argue 100%, give or take, of people will care very much about this thing, about privacy.
Yeah,
It-
right.
you actually raise a very important point that I want to hammer on a bit. So there are two aspects to privacy, and I believe that there is a disconnect between what us, the advocates and devs, whatnot, usually tell people about, and what people, well, I wouldn't say 100%, but most of them actually end up caring about. And it is also why you see. You see so few like privacy payments in the real life, especially when they're separate from like the general swarm of payments. So there is the security side. I'm already paying for a thing, and I don't want anyone to be able to trace back from my payment to whatever else I'm doing. So that is a security side. But then there is also what I would call the availability side. So the availability side is that I can do this payment in the first place. So to a lot of us, like that sounds like nonsense, right? Like crypto is permissionless. Yeah, of course you can do those payments. The blockchain is not gonna stop you. The BCH network is not gonna stop you. Most other, though not all of them, most other crypto network is not gonna stop you from making a payment. What the hell is that? That is nonsense. Well, it's a bit more complicated because it actually does happen. Like for example, the clearest example is the thing that you see on like our cryptocurrency or even our BTC. I don't know if they still do that. All the time, where you want to get some US dollars. That is the most common one. Through your coins. You want to spend some coins and get some US dollars, or you want to spend some coins and get some expensive piece of stuff. And then it's rejected. Coinbase rejected you. BitPay rejected you somehow. Some other guys rejected you, Kraken. It's or even the ones that people generally think of. Oh yeah, they take more shady stuff like Binance. Turn out they reject you like even more often, like sometimes for even shadier reasons. So that sucks. And if you talk about security, like most people would recognize that as okay, that is probably valuable. It's probably valuable that people are not allowed to know what what other things I'm doing, or how much money I have. But the risks are kind of theoretical. But if you go to like an availability risk, people can recognize immediately. Oh, well, if I can't do things, then my money lost value, and that is a very immediate impact. The problem of that part is that it is immediately recognizable as an impact. Um, I would say that people who can crack it, people who can actually address this head on instead of indirectly, would probably have like the perfect crypto. But it was not addressed head on because it's a hard problem, and there are solutions to that. None of them are good solutions. Um, those solutions I would collectively and controversially call them money laundering solutions. Um, they exist. They're everywhere. They probably exist in like hundreds to thousands times more in scale than whatever we call privacy solutions, but none of them are good solutions. So I would say that that is what people care more about, and we are not doing a very good job addressing that need. So yeah,
Is that an issue with non-crypto type stuff though?
that
I mean, with
is
non-crypto money, right? Like, I mean,
a huge.
obviously it is for somebody who's on some kind of like a major organization that's on a blacklist or something like that, or a
That is a
nation or
huge.
whatever. Like
That is a
that's
huge
one
issue.
thing. But I mean, for the average person, is that an issue when you're outside of crypto?
It
For me, it has been like if I apply for an account and they're like, "What are your source of funds?" and I'm like, "My source of funds is my job," and they're like, "Show me proof," and I show
yes,
proof. I earn BCH from my job. That's how I earn money, and they're like, "No, because it's crypto," and I'm like, "Okay."
that
Is that the kind of thing you're talking
it
about?
gets
Right?
it gets worse, right? Like that is probably the milder form of availability problem. The worst parts of availability problem is just something like, okay, I am guilty of driving around with $10,000 in my pocket. That is a thing in, say, the US of A. I
In
don't
the
know.
United States, yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know what happens elsewhere. Like the cops can just stop you and then say, "Oh, what you got there? You got $10,000 in your car. Are you guilty for anything else? Do you have a warrant or something?" No, but yeah, let me check that, and then your $10,000 is gone. Like it's gone, just fucking gone. And then they later like do some kangaroo court shit where they, instead of suing you, they sue that $10,000 and then they get it.
Yeah,
that's
for people who are listening
the
who
thing.
think this might be bullshit and aren't Americans, this is not bullshit. If police stop you in the US and they find like, I don't know, 10,000 US dollars, or if they found some amount of crypto, they literally are within their rights to just say, we're going to take that from you because it's suspicious. And then they have, like you name said, they have this legal workaround where they legally attack the money, not you. And yeah, they literally just take your money and you have no recourse for it.
Yes. And so, it's not. I would say that it's probably the most egregious in the U.S., but it's not that. It's not just a problem in the U.S. It happens everywhere else. Like, you want to open a bank account. There's a lot of scrutiny. Oh yeah, this is anti-money laundering laws. What the hell is money laundering anyway? Like, so I have I have $50,000 from my grandpa, and now I have to explain to you how my grandpa got that fucking money. Okay, okay, great. What if I can't? Well, then my money is gone. Oh shoot. Fantastic. That happens. That happens. That happens to people more than a lot of people think. Like, it happens every time you take your money across borders. It happens when you want to deposit even slightly larger sums of money. Um, and it happens here and there when you want to buy real estate or cars. Uh, it's it's just not common enough to make everyone aware, but it is not a trivially dismissed thing. And again, I don't think we are doing a good enough job addressing this yet, because and part of it is because everyone's afraid to say the L word. Well, oh yeah, we are just privacy advocates. We are not doing money laundering. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, we could probably try to invent some new word, but availability is a problem.
This is kind of related to the same psychological effect of that I realized. I grew up and when I realized that things were just constantly getting more expensive, and there's the news and they talk about inflation, and I asked my parents, I was like, what does that even mean? And they're like, oh, the price of things goes up over time, it's normal. And I was like, okay, right. So you just internalize that as that's fine, no problem. And just because that's what you're told, that's a normal thing. And it's similar here where it's like, oh, it's okay, the bank needs to know where your money came from.
Oh yeah,
Okay, that's normal. And it's like, hold up, is that really okay? Do they really need to know? And the only reason they need to know is for some purposes that are not really great, right? They claim it's for XYZ, like anti-terrorism and whatever, but that's really not what it's for, right? It's for tax and control.
The whole thing actually drifted a lot over the decades, too. Like it went from where it should be, which is like, okay, you are a guy, like you are a guy, you committed, you did bad things, therefore you are bad. That's how it was. That's what I would say that is how it should be, right? And then it went on from that to, okay, you're a guy, you did bad things, you have money, therefore the money is bad. Well, wait a second. And then, okay, you are a guy, you have money, therefore the money is bad. The money is already somewhere else. The money remains bad and must be banished somehow. Okay, it gets a bit iffy, but some people might be able to sympathize with that. And then it went, and then it got worse. And then it's like, okay, we must get rid of all bad money as defined by me. Therefore, you are a guy.
Not get rid of, confiscate. Bad money.
Yep. Therefore, you are a guy. We don't know if you did any bad things. Probably not. But you have money. You must prove to us that this is good money. If this is not good money, we will say that this is bad money, and your money is gone, which is terrible. And it's kind of actually the status quo these days for any like.
That's absolutely the status quo right now.
That is which is terrible, and it didn't used to be this way, largely because the authorities, even if they wanted to, they just didn't have any means to enforce it, but now they do. So yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, the water that we live in has changed, right? I'm old, and I remember growing up, there was none of this stuff, right? Like when you did deposits or withdrawals, there was no such thing as like KYC and checking all the details of where your money comes from and so forth. That stuff has just appeared. It's not a natural thing that must exist, right? It has been imposed for reasons, and yeah, like you said, it's just kind of the goalpost has moved over time, and now it's not just, are you a bad person? It's if you can't objectively prove that, and of course the proof is bullshit anyway, but if you can't objectively prove that you're good, then by default you're bad and you're not welcome. And for banks and so forth, that's risk management, right? They're like, I don't know, the government's gonna screw us if we ever allow somebody in, so fuck it, we're just gonna put the screws on everybody. And if you're rich enough, you can get around it anyway. So the people doing tons of money laundering are still doing it through banks anyway. It's just that they have enough money to play the game. So just the average person gets squashed in this bullshit game of moving goalposts.
Yeah, and the really cute thing about this is that just like the security side of things, which we talk about quite a bit in the last episode, if you have a custodial relationship, it is actually a lot easier to do this. So, for example, if you have well, I wouldn't, I probably shouldn't say custodial. I should say custodial and trusted. So, yeah, banks and rich people have been doing this for hundreds or freaking thousands of years, and they are the experts, and they are the experts in this. Almost all the art auctions, for example, is a prime example of this. And a lot of the real estate transactions, especially in very liquid markets, I don't know, London or New York or such. Um, I would say a significant percentage of that is just money laundering, um, and a bunch of like entire freaking companies, they can do that, and it is kind of insane that they just keep doing it while convincing like regular people like you and me that, oh my god, this is so bad. No, it's only bad when the poor people do it. Or the slightly richer people do it. When the really rich people do it, it's just business as usual. Or maybe it's even privacy for the rich people, and it's a good thing. It's necessary for business. It's kind of insane. So yeah, if you have a bunch of trusted underlings, then apparently it's not that hard to do. And you can even lawyer up and make the government protect your transactions. But it turns out that if you are not rich, you don't have an army of lawyers and accountants to help you do it. And you don't want to put money in someone's custody and risk having them steal money, then it's kind of hard to do. And I would say that we only very recently have the possibility, not necessarily the full capability, just the possibility to do it because we now have crypto. And it got more and more mainstream in the last 10 years or so.
Which comes back to the whole anonymity set, and the more users, the more privacy you can possibly have, and the harder it is politically to attack such a thing, the more people are using it, which goes back to a bunch of other discussions. But yeah, I wanted to ask a question. Fiendish, I hope you won't mind if I put you on the spot, but I wanted to hear what your kind of take on this is, right? There's this ugly name, money laundering, which has a very bad reputation, and people see it as something that bad people use. And then there's this privacy thing, which hopefully most people don't think is bad, but I know there's some group of there's some subset of people who think, oh, privacy, oh, that's actually just a euphemism for people who want to do bad things.
There are a lot of people who actively want to make privacy a bad word. So
yeah, they want to make it a bad word, but there's some people who just naively think like, oh, only bad people need privacy, right? Because they don't have a concept of, oh, okay, well, give me all your photos from your phone, and they're like, no, and you're like, okay, and now we've got a starting point for privacy, right? But yeah, Fiendish, I don't know. I was wondering what your take is on this kind of gray area that Uname has brought up between money laundering and privacy.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, like just what you said there about privacy, it's really true. So my mother, I had a conversation with her a couple of months ago where she was also mentioning, like, I don't understand, if you've got nothing to hide, why would you need privacy? I said, Mum, how often do you leave the door open when you go to the toilets? I don't do that. So exactly. So I think it's amazing how many like people out there are starting to parrot that the idea and have this, hey, I've got nothing to hide. Why should I be concerned about this? But let's go to the money laundering. So yeah, I mean money laundering. So just looking up, this is like the Wikipedia first couple of sentences about money laundering, which is the process of illegally concealing the origin of money obtained from illicit activities. Illicit activities being generally those that are illegal. And you know, I'm gonna say quite clearly now, money laundering is a massive problem in the world. Money laundering is definitely something that we should be very concerned about. Like every single day around the world, billions upon billions of money is taken away from honest work, and it's siphoned free process, where it's then given to elite, to the government, and then it's spread around to God knows what, right? Despite the fact the average person works 7 to 8 months in Germany to pay their tax. We've got printing of euros, and despite all of that, there's still black holes in the economy in Germany, in the UK. So money laundering is a massive issue, and it's the government that we should be concerned about that's doing the majority of this money laundering into their own nefarious companies and pockets.
Right.
Hey,
Is that
hey,
right?
it's really easy when you're the guy, when you're the guy or guys enforcing the money laundering rule in the first place, right?
Exactly, exactly.
This isn't
So,
illicit. It says so right here in the law that what I
but
this
exactly,
these weapon sales that I did were not illicit.
they're not.
Okay.
Yeah, so I really mean this. So like money laundering is a massive issue. And we should actually be looking to stop it. So it's like coming from a different angle from you, imaginary, but I guess we end up at the same destination. Is the fact that when people can have ultimate privacy, and so you know, hopefully everyone that lives in a free or or should be in a free country, you believe very much of the principle that you are innocent until proven guilty. And this is a very important, like established doctrine that goes back to ancient Greece. Like it is massive. It's very important. And therefore, no one should have any information about your money, where it's come from, where it's going, unless, of course, you are under investigation because there is enough evidence, signed, sealed, and delivered from with a court order and a signature from a judge that basically that the authorities can go after you because there is compelling evidence. In which case, you know, of course, there's always some physical trace when you want, you know, people want to spend their money, they have to buy something, and that buying something is going to be a physical good at some point. And so there's always a way of still catching the really bad people that are doing crimes that the majority of people in a democratic country say, yeah, no, that should be a crime, and people that are doing that particular thing should go to jail or whatever. Um, but by having like privacy where governments do not know where the money is, they've got no idea like who has this money, what are they buying, it protects us against the biggest and most orchestrated money laundering that's going on, that is taking the wealth of the majority and giving it to the few. So that's my take on money laundering.
Right. So there's an element of it is a good protective mechanism, right? To say, yeah, there's a such thing as people doing bad shit with their money, and it's a meaningful thing to say we want to potentially block the use of money or the possession even of money that's doing bad things. It's like, okay, well, if that's part of your social contract in your country, whether you agreed to the contract or not, that you are part of it. And okay, so that's a thing. But then, as you said, how does that apply to the average person who now has to prove, okay, I'm not only just an average person doing my thing, I have to prove that I'm not a bad person. And if I can't prove that I'm not a bad person, I'm a bad person. Right? This is the
Yeah.
violation, right? This is where we cross the
Exactly, and
line
it's a
into
complete
yeah.
violation, and it's really, you know, the whole the metaphor of the slowly boiled frog is so true. Um, there's so much that's happened just in the Corona period. There was quite a lot of laws that were added in Europe during that time, and I know, and I'm 100% certain on this. If I was to go back 6 7 years and say where we're at today with the whole banking system and privacy laws. Uh, Everyone in 6 years ago would have said, "I'm crazy. That would never happen. There would be a revolution." And yet here we are. So yeah, and this idea that you have to, and people are now having to do KYC, and having to ask permission to use their money, and having to prove that it's coming from, that it's good money, because if you can't prove it's good money, then it's automatically bad money. This goes against like all those fundamental principles, of innocent until proven guilty, and it's absolutely, everyone should be able to have their money in a way that no one knows what they've got, including the government. There is no reason why anyone should know how much money you have, what you're spending on. And as I said, like, and I believe, like, very fundamentally, then privacy is a right. It should be a right that's enshrined. Whether we're at war, if aliens come and attack us, or an asteroid hits the planet, nothing should change those primary rights, and privacy is one of those. And yes, I do believe that. Also, I believe, I'm not someone that believes that we should have zero government, and I believe that, if you are trafficking humans, for example, truly abhorrent crime with real victims, and there is enough evidence to search your, and basically monitor your transactions, or monitor your internet communications, and following your money as best as you can, and that leads to an arrest. Like, I'm absolutely for that too, and I don't think that privacy, you can make cryptocurrencies as private as possible, but you'll still be able to catch people with that sort of thing, because there's real people being physically abused or used, and then those people that are doing that and earning money from that, they're not just buying their stuff digitally, are they? Because we need a house, people want a nice house, you want a nice
Yeah.
car,
Do
and so
you?
there's always that physical purchase, which allows for those people to be apprehended.
I am no longer hearing anyone else. Oh shoot.
It seems Uname has had a Twitter malfunction.
I should probably leave and join again, just like last time. Great.
Twitter, yeah. It doesn't. If you
Yeah,
notice that when Elon Musk is speaking, with someone that never has those issues, suspicious.
It's a conspiracy. So yeah, what you said is absolutely true. I totally agree. There's so then there's the reality, right, of what has actually happened, and it doesn't need any kind of conspiracy theory to it, although there probably is something, I don't know, but it doesn't need one even. So if you look at how this stuff has actually played out in real time over the last 30 years, there's something you can look at called the FATF, and this is how it's happened, where legally, somewhere, like you said, at least nominally free countries, right, where you have some notion of freedom and rights and so forth, in nominally free countries, you wouldn't be able to really legally do this, right? The goalpost moving is too extreme to say, like, oh, if you can't prove that you're a bad person, you're a bad person. That wouldn't fly, right? But that's not what happened. What has actually happened is there's this thing called the FATF, and it has come in and seeped into all of these places, probably actively, right? Like, this is a relief for people who want to maintain control, that you can apply the rules of the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. It's some French organization, and these rules are applied and adopted by many regulatory agencies. So it comes in through the back door, through regulations, which don't necessarily follow legal frameworks. They're not subject to the same rules. So it's bureaucrats who are applying the rules, and then those rules become reality, even though they don't necessarily match up with the Constitution or whatever it is of your nation. So these things have seeped in through the back door, and now you're subject to these rules that, like we've been saying over and over, if you're not a bad guy, if you can't prove that you're a bad guy, you're a bad guy, more or less, from a regulatory perspective. So you become persona non grata. You become excommunicated from the financial system or whatever. So this is the kind of back door that things have come through. I don't know. Have you seen the FATF? Has that like impacted your kind of corporate activity?
Sure. Oh, sure. And it's I mean, it's insidious. The anti-money laundering laws that have been brought in, like that started with that, were I think like 230 countries have started up to that. Don't quote me on the number exactly, but it's basically every country on the planet shares all the tax information with each other, with a few notable exceptions, like really awful countries such as North Korea. I think Russia, Venezuela, kind of places where you know a typical freedom loving person would not want to live. Um, and it's had a huge impact. And I think this is one of the things. So you know, you're mentioning about conspiracy theories. Like I know there's some people in the fringe of BCH who would immediately point to one particular group, which I think is not very helpful. But for me, it's just that's the problem with centralization. It's just, and we'll always have this problem. Even when cryptocurrency, when BCH is being used, it's like it's a solution to something, and it will help with decentralization, but it won't get rid of centralization that will always exist in some form. And you know, with the financial controls, like governments and everyone that's involved in the financial industry, they're hugely incentivized to have more control over that. Like they get more power by doing that, and they have less power by giving freedom. So why would you know? And asking if anyone here is honest with themselves, like, do you give up your power readily? Of course not. Everyone does what they can to gain power, to be able to gain more wealth, generally speaking. And so I don't think there necessarily has to be a big conspiracy theory here. Although I'm quite sure, you know, it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was some level of nefarious orchestration as well. But I also think it's just that it would happen anyway. It's just a natural progression where a centralized power, you know, governments have a monopoly on, and banking industry have a monopoly on all of this, to be able to change the laws, change the rules of the game to benefit them. And it will continue to do that, like it has done in in history, we've seen these centralizations of power. It's happened time and time again. The French Revolution, I think, was sort of the more violent end to that centralization of power. And what I'm hoping is that something like Bitcoin Cash can offer a peaceful way out of this. But the reality is, like, it will come to a head. It has to come to a head in some way, shape, or form, where people basically say, "Hey, stop! That's too much." And that's where I do question whether there is some sort of planned plan to this, because it does seem to be coming in a sort of a very clever way that people get used to it before they move the bar again. And also, you know, asking about if it's like affected my life. In When I look in Germany, the amount of laws that were passed about capital control during Corona was shocking, and most people don't even know about it. And when they're told about it, they're shocked and appalled. So I think that, you know, there is, and that seems a bit suspicious. You know, during Corona, you know, apparently this deadly virus is killing lots of people, that poses such a risk to the world that we need to stop even families visiting themselves. And people that weren't vaccinated in Germany, for example, couldn't even go to the shops and buy clothes. That was actually illegal for many months. But yet there was enough time for the politicians to create even more capital flow laws. Like that's a bit suspicious to me. So yeah, but anyway, the main
I
problem
would
is
like to hear about
centralization.
this. Could you summarize these capital control laws that were implemented? Because this is one of those things where it's like there's a degree to which the masks come off, right? When things are really hot, when things are really moving fast, the masks come off. And those are really
Yeah,
valuable moments, right? Like as I always say, right? Like you take notes. You got to always be taking notes. You can't necessarily do something today, but you got to take notes and pay attention to when things are happening. What are some of those capital controls? Could you like real super quickly like explain what
yeah.
are
To
those
be honest,
capital
I
controls?
actually there's quite a lot of laws. I'm gonna have to let me see if I can get them, because I'm not at home right now, so I can't pull them up. But I'll get back to you hopefully within the next 5 minutes on that.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Before I say, because there's quite a lot that was implemented between 2021, 2023. But yeah, then maybe I can share a list on here.
Hey, am
I
I
mean,
Yeah,
back?
and the
it's
implication here,
definitely
right, is
happening
that
here.
there's
Like,
control is at the center of what's going on. The implication, right, is that control is at the center of what's going on, and this doesn't require any kind of conspiracy theory, right? But if you're a bank or you're a government, you don't like to see things that are out of your control. That's just a natural thing. Whether that's good or bad doesn't matter. It's just a natural thing. And so, yeah, when you see crypto or something else that is able to go around the existing system of, hey, I know exactly what assets you have, I know exactly what you're doing, I'm able to tax everything that you do according to the rules that we agree on, or that, I force you to agree on. That's kind of the social contract. Maybe people agree or don't agree. But when you have that, and then something comes along that disrupts that, yeah, you don't need a conspiracy theory to say, yeah, okay, they're gonna attack that. They want to break whatever it is that's able to go around those rules and that existing set of control. So yeah, absolutely. There's no surprise there, and the FATF that I brought up is just one example of that. Sorry, Jerry, you were saying something. My bad.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring up that I think it was 2021 where they had the trucker protest in Ottawa in Canada. Um, like essentially, like it didn't really matter if you had any form of payment at all, right? Like the Bitcoins didn't matter, the credit cards, obviously, those were frozen down. But, like, even for the Bitcoin stuff, it's like if you're not able to get the resources into like the people, like to the people that actually need them, you're still kind of stuck there, right? Like it doesn't matter like who's actually giving you the money. If the resources you want isn't being, accessed, like what Uname was saying earlier, then you're still kind of tough out of luck. And I think it was after that protest where the Canadian government just came down with a whole bunch of new rules and regulations, particularly around the crowdfunding. So they basically just want to stop all that and just categorize everyone as, like just money business services or something like that, MSBs.
Yeah, man. As as I've said for many years, and as Jim was saying, I think people are okay, and it makes sense that you're okay with the way things are because that's the life that you've lived so far. But once you start to run into these walls of, wait, I thought things were one way, but then I ran into this wall where something that should be totally normal, like you're saying with the protests, I want to support these guys who are doing a certain thing. You can't. You're not allowed to do that, right? You run into that wall and you're like, what? And then you start asking questions like, what do you mean I can't do that? This is my money, right? You start to have questions about, wait, what do you mean I can't do that? I don't know. So that's a not a good thing to happen, but it's a good thing for people to have this realization that actually your money that you have in the bank is it's not really yours. It's yours to the degree that the government agrees that you can do whatever it is you want to do, which is great when you have an ideal government and it's a wonderful, amazing uh Arthurian, round table government. And then it's not great when your government in reality is not perfect and has you know motivations that aren't so pure, which is of course the reality.
Which is just the common state of humanity. This is something. So the idea of a government that actually put the interests of the people beyond its own interests, is for me is it's just such an alien concept. Because as lovely as I think in Bitcoin Cash community we've got some people who are genuinely like as selfless as humans get. Like there's a lot of great people that do great work. Um, Without sort of like direct reward. So of course, like good people exist. There's no doubt about that. But those kind of people just generally aren't attracted to power, is one thing. But the other thing is that in the end, even the people that are doing a lot of work for BCH, they're still doing it for their own selfish interests of making their world a better and freer place. And so this is something that, I'm a big proponent. I wouldn't call myself a libertarian, but the idea of money being separated from the states, which really, for that to truly work, it does need to have a good, robust level of privacy, because otherwise, if the government can track everyone's expenditure and knows exactly what you're doing with your money, then it can, of course, put you in jail if you're not reporting everything, or behaving in any way that is against what the government wants. So I really see that privacy is the thing that keeps that in check. Because as you say, yeah, of course, if the government was thinking of all of our interests, then that could be a fine thing. But that's a utopic reality that I don't think we'll ever experience, which is why it's good to keep any centralized power in check as much as possible. Which is why I'm very excited for more privacy on Bitcoin Cash. I definitely think that the premise of an open chain, an open ledger that everyone can quickly see and check and make sure that all the money's there and correct, is the correct approach. And I'm also very excited by when governments are using Bitcoin Cash. Very excited because going back to the money laundering, then every single taxpayer can actually see, well, where's my money going? And it could be very nicely flagged, and we can see, well, actually, that money that I paid for my road tax is going towards some war somewhere. And I can go and actually challenge that legally and say, hang on a minute, this isn't correct. And I'm very excited by that. But at the same time, having robust privacy for the individuals so that it's pretty much as impossible as we could make it for anyone to identify actually who is spending what and where.
This, man, what you just described is pretty much the entire reason that I got heavily into actually working on Bitcoin and trying to actually make a difference with Bitcoin. Is it was actually a meetup that was organized by Cheap Lightning a long time ago. This is in Japan. And so I went to this meetup a long time ago, and, you know, I was just by myself, right? I had never talked with anybody else. And I went to that meetup, and the thing that I said was, you know, whatever it is that Bitcoin achieves, it serves as a competition for the existing fiat standards, right? There is no such thing as a real money outside of the global fiat standards, which are, you know, according to each country, whatever. But there's really have no alternative to that standard when it comes to money. And if you have an alternative to that, now you have competition. And so these high ideals of privacy and so forth are meaningless if you have no mechanism. And the mechanism is competition. If you actually have a money that allows you to do things in a way that isn't subject to all the rules of government or whatever it is, or all the realities, let's say, then now you have competition. And what that's going to do is not just say, oh, now we have a utopia, like you said. You don't have a utopia where, okay, I've got this money and it's perfect and everything is wonderful. No, maybe it's great. Bitcoin Cash is great and using it is great, but that's not the only thing it does. The other thing it does is it keeps the other things honest, right? Which is an economic incentive model. The other things to compete now have to compete with this disruptive thing. So if Bitcoin Cash can provide good privacy, great usability, good user experience, all of these positive things, now the fiat standard has to compete with that to some degree, right? And so whatever it is that Bitcoin Cash achieves, it's also going to force the fiats to reconsider to some degree, right? Like, okay, wait, we're not competitive anymore because people want this other thing that gives them value that they can't get with what we're providing as fiat. Now fiat has to be competitive, and that's a fantastic thing, right?
This is
global standard to improve.
Exactly. What I see, yeah, I see it exactly as what you're saying, but where I think it will go down one of two ways, because what you're suggesting is one alternate, and I think, but it can also get on the other way. So absolutely, Bitcoin definitely pushed the banking system into the modern era, because when Bitcoin first came out, banking was incredibly slow. Transfers took days, and now instant transfers are the norm. So I'm convinced that Bitcoin already helped with that. And of course, it's now we've got Bitcoin Cash and highly usable, and but it's not, you know, if it really gets to the point where Bitcoin Cash is being used by a lot of people, or rather just before that point, there's going to be the governments around the world can go in one or two ways. So they could be competing, or they may really drop the mask. And really, if it's really like there's more of a schedule and agenda behind all this, then the mask will come off, and they're going to really clamp down hard on liberties. But that will also mean it comes to a head, because one way or the other, it will come to a head. And what I do believe is if the mask drops, people will revolt, and it will be, you know, the chance of a revolution and the chance of the people winning would be relatively high. So, I definitely agree with you. In any case, technology like Bitcoin Cash, it pushes this, it challenges it, and it will come to a head, and it will almost certainly lead to a better future for us. And you just say it keeps the other side either honest. Well, actually, if you think about it, no, it keeps them honest either way, because it's honest and they become offer a better service, or they become honest and they lose the nice friendly mask and show their true self. Either way, it's honest.
Oh yeah, exactly that. And man, this it goes so deep, right? As well, like people who are facing inflation and explosion of costs of things, it's almost politically unacceptable to say like, well, maybe it's due to money printing. Somehow that has become not a thing that you're allowed to
Oh, it's
say.
Russia.
I don't know.
Russia's to blame. And when the war
Right.
is over, then prices are of course gonna come back down again, right? If that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah, people look for a lot of other reasons for it, but of course there are various reasons to things, but it's down there at the root of it. And the inflation thing is one of those. Keeping the fiat standard honest is one of those things that I'm very hopeful for BCH about. And as you said, right, either it becomes competitive, which it has to some degree, just as you said, things, instant transactions have become the norm. Digital cash, Venmo and all this other stuff, although fully custodial and fully controlled and very bad for privacy, although those are all the case, it has improved in that aspect. Absolutely, that has become more competitive.
And
So, but
privacy
the mask comes
privacy and
off.
control has gone down massively. And this is what I think, just as a
Yes,
sort of maybe this isn't the best parallel, but duty free. So when I was younger, duty free was super cheap. So when you went to fly to another airport, you buy your alcohol, your cigarettes for nothing. It was so good. But then everyone was traveling. And so as soon as everyone's traveling, you pay a lot more in duty free. It got a lot worse. And I kind of feel it's the same way here, because we had all these, as you say, like the rich can have got their ways of getting their money around and avoiding a lot of taxes. But now we've got this technology that enables everyone to get these benefits. And so the amount of control has just ramped up massively. So we've had this, definitely an improving of the overall banking experience on the speed side of things. And also the apps have got much nicer, much better user interfaces and user experience from that point of view. But the level of control has got absurd to the point where most people that I speak to will also raise an eyebrow now that something's gone wrong here. Something's not quite right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for people to take that step where they realize maybe the things that the government says that the reasons they're doing this are not the actual reasons that they're doing this, right? People start to have to think about that question when it actually applies to them, because they're like, wait, I'm not actually doing anything bad. Why are you doing all this stuff to me? I didn't, what? Right? So you start to actually question that. And that's part of the competition, right? Like, hey, you have a competition that doesn't pose these very privacy invasive questions to you. Oh, well, why is it that you're doing that thing to me? Maybe there's something to that. Why is the reason that you're doing that? So yeah, I look forward to that competitiveness. And if the mask does come off, and somehow all the the resources of governments are brought to bear to destroy P2P electronic cash, okay, fine. But then that just results in the result of that my second outcome, which is my first, is in my lifetime I get to see the adoption of P2P electronic cash, competition with the fiat standard, and improvement of the status quo for everybody. And then the second objective is, well, okay, maybe not in my lifetime, but it'll definitely happen at some point, right? The competition is there, and you can't ignore it in the long term.
Yeah, it's there. The genie's out of the bottle, and it will
It
definitely.
is.
I'm convinced it will happen sooner or later. And it really is one of those things. It's just impossible to predict. It could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 50 years. But I do think that the sooner it happens, what I do believe is privacy will become an issue. I know a lot of people have said like no one cares about privacy, and I know that I had a discussion with Jeremy too about this, about Like look how used Monero is, or how big it is. Like, you know, it's really not that important on the grand scheme of things. But it's like a lot of things. Like some, yeah, I agree. Like if BCH had the best privacy right now, would we see a huge influx of users? No, definitely not. But when people are actually starting to use cryptocurrencies for their day-to-day payments, you bet your ass they're going to care about privacy, because when all of a sudden someone points out to them like, oh wow, you've got a lot of money, whatever it is, they're going to be shocked, they're going to be mortified, and they're going to be like, oh my god, I can't believe this is terrible. And then they're going to have a very negative feeling for that chain, and they'll be like, well, actually, do you know what? I'm going to go back to paying with my bank account, because then they don't get to see how much money I've got in my bank account, and they'll leave cryptocurrency. So
That's
even
the
though
that's the Binance argument that
yeah,
Uname made last time. Is
yeah,
exactly the Binance argument.
okay,
The bank
okay, so
serves as
yeah,
your privacy
yeah,
mechanism. Yeah.
exactly. And people will feel that, and so, you know, we're building money for the future. We're not building good enough. We're building, you know, the best possible money that we can get, and so it will be important. And so I'm really glad that a lot of thought is being put into this now. And Jason Drazener has putting a lot of his mind power to this, and because I think you know, if we're really serious about big Bitcoin Cash being used worldwide by everyone, by, you know, our mums and dads and regular shops, privacy will just be that thing that people will expect, even if, you know, and without any friction. Because if they have to jump through, it's really important. But if they have to do like a small bit of friction to have that privacy, they'll go back to fiat. That's also something I think is just a sad
Right.
reality.
Yeah.
Can I jump in on this? This is something I think I've been really impressed with the BCH community recently, and I think we need to sort of double down on and encourage this trend. Is I've noticed over the last 2 years or so, the BCH community is really looking to like cover all of its bases, right? We had Abla for the scalability stuff, which was still, you know, 300x increase in traffic away from being needed, but the community is stable and healthy and focused enough to think, okay, what are the problems that we can solve before we even have them? So Abla was it for scalability. We've recently seen Jason Dreisner coming out with stuff about quantum, which again is not like on the imminent horizon, but it's in the medium term. And the same as Fiendish is saying, I think, yeah, with privacy, people are not going to necessarily all be, you know, panicked about that, or that's not the number one thing they're going to be asking about right now. But in the medium to long term, it's going to be very, very important. So I'm very glad that the community is discussing and thinking about these things, because they will all stack on top of each other. You know, we're kind of getting to a point where when we're discussing with people, they don't like the number of things that they can bring up. What about this? What about that? It's kind of like, we've already got a solution. Here it is. And for the things that don't have a solution, it's like, it's in the works. Here's, you know, where you can jump on that thread. And you don't necessarily need to convince people of every different aspect so much as you need to be able to show them, you know, be convincing that you have thought about it. They don't care about the solution so much as they care that you have already made an effort on that behalf, you know. So I think we're in a good spot with that, and I'm really glad to see it.
From BCH ecosystem perspective, for the people who understand that we're aiming for the brass ring, right? For actually P2P electronic cash for the whole world, which bafflingly has been dropped from maybe 99.99% of all other cryptos. And there's that many decimals of cryptos, right? For us who are aiming for that, it's very obvious, right? Like, yeah, you're going to run whole economies on this. So of course it needs to meet a lot of diverse needs, obviously. And have we done all of them yet? No, but are all of them possible? Yes. And here's either a solution or how to do a solution. Yeah, absolutely. And it's obvious, right? When you come from the right perspective, of course we need all those things. We need we need it to work as money. At least as good as the money today. And hopefully, right, the target is for it to be much better than what people experience with money today. But yeah, for people who come from the fiat standard, it's a very hard thing to see, right? When you've grown up with 10 generations of people who have literally nothing but the fiat standard in their kind of cultural milieu, like, okay, now we've got something different that actually competes with this fiat standard. Yeah, it's a big step. It's a big step for people to accept.
And people aren't going to accept things that have sort of rough edges. Fiendish was speaking about this yesterday, and I think he's right that even if it's like pretty good, that's not going to be enough, right? Because people have inertia. They want to stick with the system that they have, the way they're doing things, and so forth. So when you show them something new, their first instinct will be to find something small that is wrong with it, that then they can just dismiss the whole concept because it's easier. It's easier than incorporating that new information, right? So whether it's like privacy, which I think the point needs to be really as sort of inbuilt and behind the scenes so that it becomes the kind of thing when somebody asks about, in the same way that currently right now you don't ask about it and it's not a problem until it's a very big problem. In BCH it should be like you never ask about it and it just is never a problem because it's all been sorted kind of behind the scenes. Like for instance in
Absolutely.
Selene, you know, if we could have it that it was just running Cash Fusion by default and it was just, you know, so cheap and inexpensive, it automatically mixes your coins with some sensible defaults, and then maybe people would be looking in their transaction history and they would see that, and then maybe would have a little info thing that they could learn more about, you know, what was happening there if they were interested. But if they were never interested, then that's fine, and they just, you know, were like protected by default.
Right. Yeah. Is it private? Yes. Okay. The
Exactly.
end. Right. No need to.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
actually an interesting
absolutely.
point. It's like, and I don't know if it's something that I've been misinterpreting or other people are, but I hear a lot of, you know, privacy by default, but also meaning like, I've always taken this from the chain perspective, when they're talking about that. But what I what I would really love to see, and I think, you know, just sort of what you said there is, when people using the wallet, the optimal settings of that wallet should just be there straight away. Which I would say is absolutely private on. So the average person shouldn't even be thinking about that, because by the time they care about that, it'll be too late. It's like, oh crap, I've already sent all these transactions, and now everyone's aware of how much I've got, or what I've been spending. So you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing that. You know, this is something that's not available today, as far as I'm aware, in any phone wallet app for Bitcoin Cash, because of the challenges with getting Cash Fusion running. But it's something that, you know, I can imagine in 2 or 3 years, we'll have, you know, more wallets that are supporting privacy on the phone. And what I would definitely love to see is all of those wallets. My personal take on that is that privacy should be default on, with the best privacy that can be offered at that particular time.
Privacy maximalist. I can't believe I'm on the same. Yeah, no, I'm joking. Yes, absolutely. By default sounds great. And as we discussed last time, there's an important distinction between privacy by default and your whatever money network of choice, Monero or Bitcoin Cash or whatever it is, choosing for you what that privacy mechanism is. The nice thing with Bitcoin Cash is we're going to be able to use smart contracts to implement whatever this privacy mechanism you want is. So you can participate in whatever that is. And as you were saying, maybe your wallet developer will say, hey, Cash Fusion is the best thing. So here's what we're going to do. It just works like this automatically. You don't even have to think about it. Or if other even better things come out, then yeah, okay, we're going to use that by default. That's the beauty of a bare metal open ledger, where you can choose the mechanisms that you want to use.
And that's fantastic. And this is something I think is going to be a differentiator. So if I was going to be using Ultimate Privacy today, so I'm not a big into all the privacy coins, but I would almost certainly use Monero. But when going into the future, there's going to be, you know, competing privacy protocols, and certain ones are out today. I think will almost certainly be cracked, or if they haven't already. And for something like Monero, changing that underlying encryption for their entire network, it's you know, I guess it's technically possible, but I'm also guessing it would be huge and very risky. Whereas with Bitcoin Cash and how it's working, it's like, well, someone could just run up a new privacy protocol for their particular smart contract, and people get to choose it or not. And if it completely blows up, okay, then the worst case, and it can still be painful for some people who lose money to that particular contract. But it doesn't bring down the network or anything like that. So it allows, and it will allow this great competition while still remaining
Exactly.
on the chain, because this is the critical thing about money, which I disagree with many people in the crypto space who are also P2P cash proponents, is that without a large enough network effect, everything we're doing is for nothing. Like it will never become
Absolutely.
a used thing. So so we need to be able to have these new technologies without having to swap to a completely new coin. That's not realistic, I think, if for real mass adoption.
Completely agree with you. Yeah. The whole idea of, okay, bridging between all these different things is the application. It's like, what are you bridging between them for? What are you doing in these various places? Well, if you can do it all in one place, that's the network effect. It's going to dominate, and that's a good thing. It's good to have competition, but it's also, if you want to compete with fiat, you better fucking compete with fiat, and that's going to need a massive network effect of people using something that can actually compete. All right. We've covered a lot of stuff here. This is great stuff. And you managed to completely avoid my desire to get into the details, the technical details of the reusable privacy addresses. So congratulations, GName. You succeeded. Did anybody want to cover some additional topics before we wrap up?
Well, just maybe something, I don't know, about the upcoming upgrades. Like, do we feel like BCH is at a place where we can make some, top tier privacy stuff? We just haven't got around to it. Just the lacking thing is time, resources, focus, or are there other actual roadblocks at the technical level in terms of the protocol development? We've got functions, op eval, loops. Like, what about those? Are they going to be critical to moving us forward on the privacy front, or is that a nice to have?
Yeah, on this specific topic, I was hoping Jason Dresner would be able to join us, but I couldn't get in contact with him to join us in time. But yeah, he has made specific claims, and as I said, I think on the previous one, you don't want to appeal to authority, right? That's a very dangerous thing. But there's also moments where you do depend on authority to understand or make a decision, and Jason is not a person to make statements or claims lightly, right? He's a real galaxy brain. That's like no exaggeration, right? Like, he's a galaxy brain. And when he says, yes, this upgrade in this group, actually today, a such thing as, zero knowledge proofs like Tornado or something like that is completely possible on Bitcoin Cash. The only issue is it's complicated because of the existing state of the virtual machine. But if we add loops, it becomes easier. If we add this other thing, it becomes easier and becomes more straightforward. When he says that it's already possible today, and then we can add these features that are broadly supported, some of them not, but when you can add these features, they become easier and easier and more straightforward to execute these privacy techniques such as bulletproofs, ZKP pools, and so forth. I believe it. Of course, I don't 100% believe it until I see it with my eyes and I understand how it works as a technical person myself. But appealing to authority, I do believe that that's the case. That these upgrades are going to make it so that, hey, you don't want to use Tornado on an extremely expensive chain where every transaction you make costs you tens or hundreds of dollars. No problem. Come do it over here where every Tornado transaction costs you 1 cent. Yeah, I do think that's exactly what's happening with these upgrades.
Well, and this just kind of comes full circle then to what I mentioned at the start, which is a bit unrelated, but it's similar in the sense that, okay, so if we think that it's already technically possible today, but we're lacking the resources, and then we're working to lower that barrier to entry over time, given these potential upgrades and so forth, then the question is, how do we get it to a point that people are encouraged to come in and build that stuff? Because all the building has to happen either from people already inside the ecosystem who are already building, busy delivering everything we're delivering, or it has to come from attracting in new people. So what new sort of marketing outreach narratives, like what do we need to do to make it more feasible for builders in general, which I know we talk about a lot, but in this case specifically to people on the cutting edge of like privacy technology and stuff like that? Where do we need to look for those people, and how do we win them over?
Hackathons is the obvious answer, right? Where it's a no commitment, how do I say it? Like, not a no commitment, obviously, right? But it's not like you've got to publicly commit to, you know, dropping something else and completely moving to something else. You do a hackathon and it's like, hey, there's prizes and shit. You can come and have fun and participate and prove that some privacy technique is possible, and show the world that it's possible. That's a totally viable way to grab people for a moment, right? In the long term, you grab them for a moment and they get interested, they earn a little bit of prize, and then now they're interested, the world sees that it's possible.
Something for Bliss 2026, maybe.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, we're leaning hard on Bliss here. But yeah, I think that's the first obvious thing, right? Is hackathons. It would grab people, and then of course it's a network effect, like Fiendish said. So success attracts success. So as more companies and protocols and contracts and so forth prove that, hey, we have this useful thing that you can do on chain, and it's really not expensive and it works very well. Those are already compelling differences from the rest of crypto to come and try something. And then if you compare to the legacy systems, there's already huge benefits, right? To self-custody and self-control and so forth, and permissionless participation that attract people anyway. So if you can do that, and on top of it make it easy to do through the tooling like Cashcrypt, and make it inexpensive because the UTXO model works very well and scales very well, then all the better. And I think it's just going to be a virtuous cycle of success breeding success.
I like hackathon. I think that's a great answer. The second answer, network, that's a little bit of a cop out in the sense of like, once you're winning, you're going to win. Yeah, that's true. But we've got to obviously break through that first barrier.
Right. What I mean is it's necessary, right? Like as people gain success, they're going to attract other people. That will happen. That is the kind of the definition of the buildup of network effect. So yeah, it's a cop out, but it's also just what we expect to see. It's a prediction, right? Like it's a prediction. Like as people are successful, it's going to draw more people in.
Yeah, I'm just just heavily on my mind at the moment, you know, because maybe this isn't naive or whatever, but you sort of think like, well, people are having debates and arguments, and if you can debunk all of somebody's points in a debate, you would think that at a certain point they would say, you know what, maybe you're right, I'll reconsider. But I've been losing hope in that approach, because actually it's just become, the more we win discussions and debates, the more ignored we become in a way, because people would rather just kind of ignore us than jump in and get involved, you know. And even people who have been in that for a very long time, you know, they still want to avoid it. So I'm kind of thinking, how do we break through that barrier? Do we need to go around it somehow? Do we need to find
it's the marketing thing, Jeremy? And the thing is, like, this is something I always find funny with, if winning arguments, if basically having the best logic led to people joining your cause, then we would, you know, just think how there wouldn't be any wars at all. People don't like to change their opinion, even when confronted by cold, hard, undeniable logic. Which is where sort of marketing, and I put like in inverted commas here, like, is really critical, because it's not about winning the argument, it's about winning the mind, winning the heart of the person. That's what's important, and that it requires a very detailed analysis of who actually is your target, who is the person I'm talking to, what is important to them, and how can I, you know, sell that particular thing or get them to see that actually like this thing, you know, that we have is should be important to them. Because yeah, no, we can see this on Twitter. I definitely think the winning argument, like BCH definitely has the winning argument in many cases. Has that led to those people switching sides? No, and I don't think it will. But where I do see the people switching sides is because of what you mentioned, Jeremy, is certain other aspects of the culture of BCH, such as um, the ability for different people to talk about what to improve next in BCH with nuance. And everyone has their own particular preferences and where we should go, and having those open discussions, and then aligning on that and working forward. And I think that like that sort of thing is, you know, I've seen some people joining the community because it's like the community's been very steadfast on its intended goal and is working incredibly productively now and has been for a few years. And I think that that is worth 1,000 times more to convince people than being objectively correct on an argument. So yeah,
But
marketing,
that's what I'm
marketing.
saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you're saying, it's important to say what is important to them. So, like in this case, the topic would be privacy, right? So, finding people who say that privacy is important to them, which a lot of people do. But then if we go and talk to them and say, here we go, BCH now has a lot of potential in that area, it doesn't necessarily wins them over. They just, at least not in the short
No,
term,
because
they
it's
just
not
retreat
privacy
back.
that's important. It's a bit like the example that I gave is
Exactly.
when
Yeah.
you want to get a screw to put your shelf up, you're not looking for a screw, you're looking for a hole in the wall. And it's basically as a concept. Are people in Monero really looking for privacy? Probably not. They're probably looking to belong and belong to a particular group. You know, I'm sure everyone has their own reasons. I don't want to talk for a whole community, but each individual they'll say something. That's why I'm in this community. That's why I'm in this tech. But actually, the real reason they're in it is probably something very different. But maybe they may not even be aware of it themselves. And a skilled marketer will find that thing and use that as leverage to get them to join whatever thing that you want them to join, which is in our case, freedom money, Bitcoin Cash.
But that's
And
right.
this is
That's
why I
what I'm
will.
saying. We've had this whole
Oh, sorry.
discussion then about like privacy, and then kind of if our summary at the end is, yeah, but even the people who say they want privacy don't actually want privacy, they want something else. Well, maybe that's the level that we need to attack the problem and the discussion at. That's just my
Oh, sure.
my
The
thinking.
way that I saw this conversation was rather why is privacy important for BCH? For me, I couldn't give a damn. Like if we were to add the best privacy and didn't get one person from Monero or any of the other privacy coins, couldn't care about that because what I do care about is building the best money and to onboard the next billion people, of which, you know, those billion people, 0.001% of them are using cryptocurrencies today. So I think yeah, for winning over the other privacy coin people, probably some other discussions would have to be had. And the other thing is we have to have the proof in the pudding. We'd have to actually have it there and showcase it.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's true.
These are all great points, Fiendish, and exactly why I will continue to advocate for you to go full time as BCH's, not BCH's, but as a BCH decentralized marketing venture capital type organization. I can't wait to see that, and I'll continue to say that until it happens. So I look forward to the day, and we'll see how things go.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's see. So anything else, Jerry, Jim, anything you guys wanted to cover before we wrap up?
No,
No,
nothing
I
else.
think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good as well. I was just going to say Jerry's example of the trucker protest and that kind of thing. I think that's a really good justification for why you'd want privacy as well. It's about like censorship resistance and that kind of thing. But yeah,
Oh man,
really
on that point, I saw a much nastier one. So forget about the politics of it. I really don't want to drag the politics of it into it. But back in the day when Hong Kong was in the process of, being basically swallowed officially by mainland China, right? During that process, there were people who were, producing videos, talking on social media, donating to things, and I was like, hey, you guys, you do not have privacy. You are donating through platforms that promise you zero privacy. you are going to be identified as people who supported X, Y, or Z. Are you sure you're okay with that? You should really be careful with that. And of course, the response was like, crypto's a scam. And it was like, okay. And then, 2 years later, it was like literally the next thing you see is I've been arrested because of the donation I made on XYZ platform. And it was like, yeah, yes, right? So yeah, the privacy is very important. And when everything is perfect and your government is wonderful and amazing and you agree with it completely, there's not going to be a problem. But that's not how things work, right? There is going to come a day when you disagree with your local gang or your boss or whatever. So yeah, these things are important issues, but it's very hard to convince people of that until they're already in jail, right? So yeah, at least the truckers protest, probably most people didn't go to jail, but maybe their donations were blocked. They probably got lucky in that sense. So yeah, I agree. It's a great example of people running into the wall and realizing that maybe there is something important to this idea of privacy. So Jeremy, you guys wanted to cover anything before we wrap up?
No, I mean, mostly just that I hope we can see more stuff in this area. I mean, that's in a certain way we're just trusting in the free market, and it's kind of a build-in public type of scenario. I am not leading the forefront of efforts on this, aspect, because there's only so many hours in the day. But I'm hoping that somebody maybe who can or will or is interested is listening, and if so, hopefully they jump in. You never know who's watching, right? So I feel like as we're building momentum on everything else, then we just need to be aware if somebody shows up showing even the slightest bit of interest in this kind of topic, to be very encouraging to them to pick up on it and run with it. It's going to take somebody who needs very little sort of guidance, who is a self-starter, but if we can all keep an eye out for them, maybe we can tip them in the right direction, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's even tools for that, right? With fundme.cash or flipstarter.cash with crowdfunding for some kind of project. And one of those was redteam.cash. I'm not sure if the site is still active, but this was somebody who fundamentally was from the Monero ecosystem and was like, hey, this Cash Fusion thing is interesting. Let me actually attack it and see if it makes sense from a statistical perspective. So they published this site, redteam.cash, and got funded to do that investigation. So there's this is the network effect. There's mechanisms to do such a thing. So yeah, absolutely look forward to seeing that grow. All right. So let's wrap up here. It's been a great talk about privacy, security, safety, the future of money, competition and money, and so forth. I really appreciate all you guys, and it was good to talk. And I'll talk with you all next time. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you.